I was planning to have a calm and peaceful FOSS4G, but that didn't happen for me because the program chair and the program committee decided that, it would be an interesting addition for the conference participants to participate in an open discussion with our distinguished panelists here to touch base on the things that matters to us in this FOSS4G ecosystem, if you'd like. So what better time for this if not at the end of one of the days in the conference, preparing you for the icebreaker, right? So these are just what we're going to discuss here. It's just some food for thought, some lessons that these great people have learned in their experiences in the FOSS4G world, even if it's related to the private sector, the public sector, if it's related to community, conference organization, so on and so forth. So because we needed a title for our discussion today, we chose this one, like people and businesses, because these are the two very interconnected pillars of what open source in the ecosystem of geospatial world is. So without any more introduction of our discussion today, I'd like to introduce our panelists, and in a random order, let's say, I'm going to share a very short description of each of them. And then I will ask them all to answer one question, and then we move on from there. So please welcome Ms. Gresa Neziri. Right? For some of you, you might know her as the co-chair of the Global FOSS4G in 2023 in Prizren, Kosovo. She is a researcher with a background in architecture and specialization in urban planning and management. She's an advisor for GIS Kosovo, which is a private company working in Kosovo on behalf of the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation. She's also a co-founder of Space Syntax, which is a research institute based in Pristina. Mr. Risto Ilves, yes. He has a background in photogrammetry from the Technical University of Helsinki, and he is currently head of the development for topographic data production at the National Survey of Finland. Mr. Yuri Astrakhan, he is a MapLibre co-founder, the MapLibre co-founder, MapLibre organization co-founder, and he has interesting contributions with relation to what it means to be active human on all facets of open source, from coding to community building to fundraising and so on. And Mr. Bartosz Brzeziński, I hope I'm saying that right. He is a geospatial data steward working in the private sector, in a sector that one, at least in this room, might not necessarily see as a traditional GIS or geospatial company, a company that is working in chemical manufacturing, right? I know. I know. Okay. So this is the short introduction for all of our panelists here, and I would like, to light up the mood, maybe start with a, like to say, simple question, maybe related to how did you start your geospatial open source journey, and how did that impacted what you do? And I want you to keep in mind that we're looking at people that are working in private sector, public sector, and also community. So in a few words, how did you start? Why are you here, basically? Yes, go. You can start.
Okay. Open source journey. In 2004, I stumbled upon this website. It was showing all the answers to the questions. It was not ChatGPT, it was Wikipedia. And so I started contributing to that, and then ended up to be one of the major code contributors to the platform. And then it kind of defined my later life, because then for the past 15 years, it doesn't work. Oh, speak up. Okay, yes. So for the next 15 years, well, no, for the many more, I've been doing first part-time hobby open source, and then professional open source ever since, and it's been a lot of fun.
So my history is pretty boring. So because I started my journey and experience with open source when I was student at the university, and I need to say that in my first experience that I hated, because I couldn't understand how the data model should be structured and so on. I was studying the geography, so I think for most of us this is a very logic step in our professional career to start using the GIS in general, not only the open source, but sometimes maybe enterprise solutions. Yeah, and since 2011, I'm still using the open source with maybe a short romance with some enterprise solutions. But right now we are on separation, so I'm still using the open source. Thank you.
Similarly to you, I would say I fell into it during my student life, starting studies and as an architecture student who has a similar background knows that most of the software and data that we use in architecture come from proprietary softwares and sources and everything. So I was completely unaware of the open source world. Ended up in a master's somehow with geospatial, not even wanting to go there, completely accidental because of a scholarship, to be honest. And during our studies, I remember Slavica is here from my studies. Together with a professor, we were asked to map in OpenStreetMap in Malawi. There was some earthquake or something similar, and Malawi was very not mapped at all, and we were insinuated with pizza. So we got free pizza if we would map. Uh, That's how I started. And yeah, I guess I felt good about it, not just about maybe it was the pizza, maybe it was the contribution, but I kept going back to OpenStreetMap. Later on, going back to Kosovo after my studies, I fell into another trap of meeting Besford and the open spatial community in Kosovo, and fell onto the biggest trap, which was FOSS4G 2023, and got involved in co-organizing it. Hopefully, many of you were there. I see a lot of you that we met there. Yay! And yeah, I guess since that, the more you get involved with it, the more you become part of it, and kind of you don't even remember how you started. You just know that you're part of this community at some point.
Kim. I have a background the aerial image uh, processing, and at that time we had quite a lot of different tools, commercial tools to do things, but and sometimes there was missing tools or features. So I looked some features and found out that there's no solution. So I tried to make software by myself, and I found out that there's so suitable libraries and used open source for development by myself. So that was the start of my journey in about 15 years ago.
Thank you. Quite interesting. Quite interesting story. Some of them probably, you find yourself into some of them. I do. I'm not going to say in which one. But okay. So you mentioned community. You mentioned at some point lack of resources, lack of software solutions for what you needed at some point. So maybe we could start by with you, Yuri. So you're obviously quite a seasoned advocate for open source. So you are involved in all the main three facets of what open source is, right? You're doing the coding, you're also doing the community building. This is why you're here. You're giving workshops all the time, and you're also involved in fundraising. If I'm not mistaken, you were the one that started the Open Collective for the MapLibre organization. So you have quite a view on all of these facets of what open source is. So actually, my question is, how do you see them all three connecting? But maybe more important, do you see any gaps between them? And do you have any ideas on how we could work in filling in those gaps?
Well, I wish I had all the questions answered, but I'll try at least some ways. So first, the coding. We do coding for fun. We also do it to self-promote in a way, because like when we try things, we then publish it on GitHub, then people notice us. So it's more both the interest of our personal love of things, of coding, of breaking things or creating things, really, and to establish presence in a way, to say, when someone wants to see who we are, we can just point them not to a resume, which no one reads except AI, but to the GitHub repository and say, like, this is what I've done, this is what I am. And one interesting thing about coding is that we kind of want to keep control of what we create. We created a project. This is ours. This is mine. I created it. Everyone can see that it's mine. Community, on the other hand, kind of breaks that model. All of a sudden you go, actually, I want to create a community so I don't have to be the only one responsible answering all these silly questions and the issues. I don't want to be validating the pull requests all the time, because like, I hopefully have a life, maybe. It's less focus on me. It's now a focus on the project itself. We want the project to succeed. Fundraising is the next step in a way. We want to say, we want to cover the costs of my life. I don't want to do it as my hobby. I want to do this. I want the project to succeed even without me, or with me as the core developer or one of the developers. So I need funding for that. Or maybe I want to hire someone who will be the maintainer of the project and guide people's contributions to the project. So these three things are kind of orthogonal to one another. And yet they take from one another in some ways. Like, do you want to cede control and allow others to contribute, or maybe jointly co-own? Like, a big sign of that is usually transferring a repo from my personal GitHub name to an organization. All of a sudden, there's less focus on me, and no one knows that it was me who created 90% of that code. And so that's one of the things. And yes, if there's enough funding and support to move forward, then we could do this even when we don't have to brag about it left and right, that I am the one who created the project. So that's my short kind of overview of the state of these three things.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So,
If there's a question.
well, if we have time at the end, maybe we can also take some questions from the audience, and make this like an open conversation as much as possible within 1 hour. So you've mentioned the possibility of moving on what you do to a new group of people, and to convince them that what you've started is of value and it is worth passing on, and it is worth for them to contribute it to it. And this idea actually brings me to you, Gresa, because you guys managed to put Kosovo on the geospatial map. It's a wonderful thing, and it is highly appreciated by the entire community. I'm sure that many of you have great memories from Kosovo, from FOSS4G 2023. So my question to you is from the side of you as a co-chair organizer, but also part of the Kosovo community, geospatial community. What happened afterwards? So in 2023, you had this wonderful community, right? A wonderful conference. You had the creme de la creme coming into Kosovo and talking about geospatial. What were the traces left within the Kosovo community after this has happened? Did you see anything, or did you manage to kind of coagulate something from, I don't know, I dare to say public administration, even private sector? And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you put it correctly, if I may, when you said we put Kosovo on the map. Going into deciding to organize FOSS4G, we kind of had two reasonings behind, two objectives. One of them was to introduce Kosovo to everybody else, because we knew that many people didn't have an idea where Kosovo is, and this for the mappers community. So imagine the other part of the world. The next was to put geospatial into Kosovo's map, because it is still not there. Not just the open source geospatial, but just in general, geospatial stuff is not that relevant. There's not much demand. It's not that much developed. So we went into organizing the conference with this idea. Let's bring as many people as we can from abroad to see Kosovo, to see what we could offer. But additionally, let's invite as many people from Kosovo. We made sure to invite governmental people, like officials from different municipalities, to involve ministries in organization. We pushed as much as we could to have the ministries supporting the conference, not just because of the money they were giving, but because we knew that they're going to come at least to give a speech. So we wanted to involve them necessarily. We invited as many students as we could. We had the student sponsorship at that time, and we supported around 200 students from Kosovo and Albania and other countries nearby to have access to the conference without paying or being part of travel grantees or different modes, just to make sure that they're going to come to the conference, because we knew that it's kind of the biggest event that is going to happen in Kosovo, maybe also the region, so they could gather something from it. Since we just immediately after the conference, we were very motivated to have everybody involved. Most of the volunteers kept coming back to our meetups, to everything that we were trying to organize. We saw some potential to develop different groups of open spatial Kosovo and different stuff, mainly with students. Besford was part of a collaboration with the University of Pristina, the geography department, of giving uh, free workshops for a year for students for geospatial tools. So we made sure that they start their journey, and always putting open spatial tools into this mix. Um, uh, in last year, I've been involved in supporting the Ministry of Planning and Environment and Infrastructure of Kosovo. They are amending the spatial planning law. Together with it, they're starting to develop a new geospatial database, and we're trying to make sure that the solutions they're going to choose are open source. Um, New businesses have tried to be formed since. We see IT companies trying to put some more dimension into their work, not just web development and outsourcing solution for different countries, but also being involved and interested in what geospatial could mean for them and their businesses to develop. So since then, there's been a lot of talk, collaboration, and of course, we're still looking ahead how that's going to be further developed. We're trying to keep people involved and interested in other conferences, and especially having a European conference now in Bosnia. It could mean regional collaboration for us. So we're getting to know the people here. We're trying to invite them to Kosovo, luckily without visas, because as much as I tried to not make it political, it was very much of a challenge getting here. So yeah, let's hope that maps solve these problems too.
Thank you. Thank you so much. When you were talking now, you've mentioned that you've also approached public administration, talking about the benefits that you get when you have this geospatial component into their work and how it improves the development of the region. And of course, not because not we're not biased, but open source is the best way to do it. So this what you've mentioned takes me to Risto. So you are working in the public administration. You just gave a good presentation, a great presentation on what Finland is doing with respect to its open source strategy in the land survey. And you've brought a few lessons learned that I would like to invite you to share here with our participants. But I would also like to ask you to some key points on how do you speak. For example, if Gresa were coming to you asking how should I address this issue to my public administrations, what could their worries be when I go and I say that, we have these mature open source solutions, they've been used in an operational way, what could their worries be, and how could I foresee this, and what would be a good answer from their point of view?
That's a good question, and I think there's a big uh, gap between the developers and the high-level managers. So the developers understand that open source is a good solution and you should use it, but in the higher level, they are not so interested about the technology itself. So you have to understand what are the real business needs and how you can promote the open source solution for your needs. So I think you should first understand what is the business need for each in each case, and then think about the solution. It can be open source, it can be otherwise, but you have to understand what is the business case and then promote what you can do with the open source. And it's also hard what we are actually missing, I think, in the open source for the bigger companies or national organization is that you don't do the marketing in a good way. Which companies are very used to it, but for the open source, it's basically many people are focused on the technology and solutions, and it's nice to like here. It's nice to make software and great to be here, but for the manager level, it's not the issue. It's the issue is that how it helps our business and our business model, and it's the business model is different if you compare the license software. So it's important to notify what is the difference and what are the key benefits if you are using the open source solution.
And what would you name as key benefits?
First of all, you don't have a vendor lock. Nowadays, there's a lot of companies who can do and understand open source solutions, and you don't have a vendor lock. So if you have a problem, you can select different developers or companies who can make it service for you. If you have your own capabilities, you can do the development by yourself and hopefully publish the results, and everybody can use that information. And for us, because we are now the first national mapping agency who has done this large project and really started to use the open source solution, the question was mostly, what are the references? There's no references. We are the first one. So now you can reference that the National Land Survey of Finland has done this, and you can follow that road. And I think that's important to understand that in a high level, you always need to convince the people and it's not the technology, it's much more different viewpoints that you have to take in care.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Was the idea that the software is one more question? Was the idea that that the software that you propose is open source? Was it like a top reason? Because in the end, exactly as you've mentioned, I mean, a manager is interested for his answer to be, for his problem to be solved. In the end, it doesn't matter what kind of license it is. So in this particular case, the fact that it was open source, did it matter that much, or it just mattered that the solution was mature enough just to handle the problem and then that's it?
Yeah, that was how I solved it. So kind of that we can make the solution by using open source, and we want it to be on the driver's seat, that we can actually say what kind of production workflow we want to have in our case. And if we buy some software, it's there was no software which was fulfilling all our needs. So we anyway need some development, or we have to adjust our processes to follow those software packages. So that's kind of what we sold it, and then there was a lot of doubts anyway. So we had the first period, half year, that we have to because they were missing this part, that how we handle the data flow between, because we have over 100 operators all over the Finland in separate locations doing the topographic database management. So the question is how we can handle this kind of thing. So we developed that part which was missing. We didn't have that kind of open source solution. We developed that part, and then we get the license to go on that road. So because they found out that we can really do this kind of things, and because basically the development is the same if it's closed or open. And if you have capabilities, you can do it with the open source, and then you have a lot of different options to do it by yourself or share uh, doing with other people.
Thank you so much for your answer. So this is on the public administration, let's say, side. Let's see a little bit about the commercial, on the commercial side. Working in with geospatial data and geospatial software in a private company, in offering geospatial services in the end using FOSS4G, what would your views be with respect to what are the advantages? How did you come to use FOSS4G at the company you work for?
Yeah, actually, the buyer, in generally speaking, do not product digital. Don't produce the digital products for internal users, external users. Sorry, that everything actually what we build and we plan to build is for our internal users, mostly all the employees of the buyer. Um, but if we want to understand what is the history of the FOSS 4G products at Bayer, we need to go back to the Monsanto company, uh, because for most of the time, I mean, in the past, Monsanto invest a lot of money to enable some geospatial data management system in using the enterprise solutions. But actually, this blocked the fully adoption of this geospatial data management system, because at that time we had 3 full-time employees and 1 stakeholder who tried to adapt this technology, and later on, never-ending discussion around the cost license actually blocked this adoption. So finally, uh, the company decided to redirect the way how we want to manage the data, and that's why we started to think about the open source solutions. And in many of in a lot of open source solutions, right now we actually completely rely on the Geo server, PostGIS, PostgreSQL. Of course, in our stack technology, we have some enterprise solutions like Google and AWS. So our PostgreSQL database is hosted by AWS services. So this is actually how this began in at Bayer.
How far back was the decision made to transition to FOSS4G?
Hard to say.
10 years.
Something around. Yeah.
Okay, it's been a while. So we're gonna see Bayer as a sponsor for FOSS4G conference.
I cannot say that, but our intentional plan is to be a part of the development of the StackFast API, because our company consume a lot of the imagery satellite images. So everything is structured in that way, and I think our developers and our management have some, might be helpful insights how we can try to make it better.
Thank you so much for your question. So as we move forward, I think that I would like to address one more question to you, Yuri. So I think this is something that usually happens when, as I don't know, project managers or developers, we're trying to transition from commercial, not from proprietary software to open source software. Sometimes we might encounter some kind of resistance from a potential user, let's say. So my question to you is, how do you address these questions that hint to a potential mistrust from the? Actually, this question is for all of you. I think it's better. Yeah. How would you address in each of the sectors a mistrust from the user side related to open source?
So fundamentally, you mentioned about vendor lock-in. So what usually drives adoption is fear of a lock-in and fear of costs. When companies would like to reduce the costs and not have a vendor lock-in, they look for alternatives. If open source solution offers that in a semi-guaranteed form, it becomes interesting. So the moment we say, look, there's the solution that you can maintain yourself, even if we go under, they start listening because it solves a business need. But at the same time, if you say, look, you see all this software as a cost center. This is not your specialty in this company. You just need to use this as like one of the foundation bricks and pay as little as possible for it, because this is not the value add you provide to your users. This is when you can convince businesses to contribute to the code and financially, because the financial contribution is much smaller than they would otherwise have, while it's in the business interest to continue sponsoring you. So usually if you frame the conversation in a sense of, well, fear is probably a bad way to phrase it, but if you frame it in a terms of reducing costs while having the infrastructure to do this, they listen. And some of those means that we are not just an open source by one person, but we are community governed. We have a election process. We have bylaws. We have all these things like grown kids do, that people become interested and people trust you more. Obviously, references. Someone here mentioned references are also very important. But even having a structure, also Open Collective is a very good possibility there, because they vetted you. They have vouched for you because they looked at your processes and they say they're good. So that would be a good path for adoption, convincing businesses that we are trustworthy. Also, of course, the user base. Even if you have a lot of contributions and a lot of people interested in you, even in a non-business setting, implies that there is a value there.
And one more, because 1 second, one more for you, because you talk about, okay, I've mentioned that you are also involved in fundraising. How do you take that to fundraisers, to companies from which you want funding for specific requirements that you and the PSC of the MapLibre organization decides? How do you say that this is what we've decided that it's good for the project, and we want you to fund what we say? How do you take that to the
It's a tricky question, but I'll try to answer it. So, first of all, a nonprofit, by definition, has a mission, but it cannot do business. Well, there's some ways kind of around it, but the fundamental thing is that you have a mission. Your only allegiance is to the mission you're trying to do. If a company comes to you and says, "Look, we want this feature X," it has to match the mission first. If it doesn't match the vision and the vision of the project and the mission, sorry, no. But let's talk how we can allow for it in terms of like allowing plugin system, APIs, whatever. So it's a balancing act where we want to make our product more useful, more open, fulfilling all the needs of the users in a balanced way. So I see an open source project, especially a project like MapLibre, as a mediators between special and not so special interests trying to do what is needed for their specific use cases. We want to guide pull requests to merge pull requests provided by the users. We do not want to actually implement features ourselves because for that we need far bigger budget. But we can be the custodians of the code and we can help onboard whatever changes are needed as long as there's a general, more or less, acceptance that that is the direction we want to go in. And that's usually how we present it to the companies. Because look, it's in your interest that we maintain it, fix the bugs, fix the minor issues, and help you add useful functionality to go forward. That's how Vulkan and Metal support was merged in. That's how Globe got in. That's pretty much all the major contributions that were done to MapLibre in various areas were done because individual or groups of companies wanted something. They were willing to sponsor independent developers or some bigger companies to work on the solution. And we just help them guide through the process of collaborating with other interested parties and to merge it and ship it.
Thank you. Yeah, so no, it is for you because it's yes, it's the same initial question with respect to how do you treat, as a person that has worked with proprietary software as well as open source software, how do you treat questions that how do you answer to questions that lead to some kind of mistrust into the software just because it's open source?
I think the main reason and the main actually trying to address this question, I think the security is a really big problem here. But somehow, but the big advantage of the open source is that we have the full flexibility, right? We can do everything with the code. We can, even though the version will move forward, we can still use the older version because a lot of our things built on top of the open source can um, will need to remain for some time with using the older version. So even right now, it's for the big company is not so easy to move from one version to the next version because, as I said, we have a lot of dependencies, a lot of the users who use the software we build, and especially in the busy season, because in crop science, the spring and the autumn is very crucial part of the year. So actually, we cannot uh, stop some processes because if the seed drop the field, then that's over, right? We cannot do anything with that. So this is actually the one of the advantage of the open source, and one of the big issues, security and the flexibility.
Thank you. Yes, and for you. And now that FOSS4G 2023 passed, and you also tried to interact with public administration in talking about bringing geospatial component and open source, how did you do it?
I'm literally there. So, pretty good question to have me also reflect on it. Uh, Gathering the answers is helping, but literally, we're currently at this moment where we're trying to convince the public administration to go open source in solutions for creating an SDI for spatial planning in Kosovo. Um, because there was a previous tentative, but they never really utilized it. They went with the choice of commercial enterprise solution, and now having them to switch back to open source, it's even harder than going with it the first time. um, Fear is a factor, definitely. In the case of public officials, is the fear of unknown. They're not very familiar with, let's say, high class engineering or solutions, or they don't really understand the what's happening in the background. So they're just scared to go into it, while for them it's more secure to choose an enterprise that would be just taking care of everything, and then we do our job. So we're at this moment where we're trying to put pros in front, so they go with the right solution. And yeah, we're using the reasoning of vendor lock-in. We're trying to see legally how to kind of make them not go enterprise because they would have to choose a specific vendor. So we're trying to find some gaps in the law where they cannot do that. Therefore, oblige them. And especially with public officials, we're using the reasoning of developing capacities. While going with with an enterprise solution, you would be outsourcing the whole work, and then you just work with it as an end user, and that's it. We're trying to bring forward the idea that going open source, you would be developing capacities within the institutions and being involved and modifying the solution literally to your needs. This is looking of a more convincing route. So very, very soon during this year, and very soon we're going to make a final solution, and by the end of next year we're hopefully going to have a finalized project.
It's great. Good luck. I hope it will succeed. So, microphone. I know that you're in a good place at this point, considering the operational level that you have achieved using open source at the land survey in Finland. But going back in time, did you see what were the, in your opinion, what were the most difficult roadblocks that you had to go through to get to where you are today? I mean, do you have anything specific that you remember it was hard to address at that point?
There's a lot of things. We- Actually, what we did before we selected to use the open source, it was we made quite a lot of these proof of concepts. We tested different kind of solutions and compared, and I made a lot of different tables compared to solution, and also analyze of the cost of the licenses and what are the benefits and how much we have to develop that we get the functionality what is needed. And still there's a questions that can we really do it. And so it kind of it took several years. So you have to understand that when you are doing this kind of big change in the big organization, it takes time, and you just have to take that time. So I think it's one thing what open source community can do is understand better the funding method how the governmental agencies are doing. If you are just saying that contribute, it's not enough, because you have to more like do clear that this kind of money you get this, and it's easier to sell to the higher level uh, management that kind of agreement, because they are used to do that kind of agreement. They are not so familiar with how the community works. So I think that's kind of roadblock even today, that we get enough funding to do development, and also to understand that the business model is totally different if you compare the commercial software. So that's still a block, I think.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all your answers. And I think we have a little bit of more time. And in the end of our discussion, I hope that you found it useful and you got some nice lived lessons and ideas. And I hope that you will follow up the conversations during the icebreaker or during the bird of a feather that will start at 6:30, right? And if you're interested in joining more in conversations with people around, check the OSGeo wiki to see which ones are today registered and where they are. But in the end, I would like from each of you, if you'd like to share a few words, like the ones that you would like for the participants that listen today to you to remain with. So, random order. Bartosz, please.
Um, let me see. I think I think this is obvious for everyone here, but in my opinion, uh, please do what you do and try to develop your skill set. Um, and open source is uh, for, as- for sure at the Bayer very welcome. And as a proof that I can say that right now we are looking for 2 data engineers where the open source is needed. Yeah, you can find it the job offers on my LinkedIn. But the skill set is really really important, especially the open source.
Um, thing I wanted to mention, someone brought up quality, and that is a very important aspect. You see, um, quite often I propose some project for someone to open source their project, especially with some company, small or large. And the very first answer I get is, "Oh my God, there's no way I can publish it. It's like it's really crappy code." And that's what I get very often. And I'm sure some of you like think of all the code you wrote. I'm like, I'm not sure you want to publish any of it, or some of it at least. So the open source ensures quality just because you're ashamed to share bad quality code, and that keeps the quality better. So if a company can publish something, if a person in that company can publish something and say, this is mine, and later to bring to the hiring point, like, I don't want to share GitHub with really bad code to my potential partners later in any kind of coding, business or otherwise. So open source forces us to be more honest in what we publish. And that keeps the plank much higher. And that's something that I think we all kind of learned one way or the other when publishing and contributing to open source.
Yeah, and I would like to maybe build on that. To me, a continuation of that would be the open knowledge topic. So while yes, we contribute to better quality by sharing the code, we also contribute to a faster and better and bigger picture of the knowledge. It has been very helpful to me to get faster to the information being involved in open source communities. And I see we came here with agendas. Some might employ someone it is a very good way. To me, I also came to gather quite some information. So this was a very good moment to open the topic, and I'm going to be approaching a lot of you to ask you how I can convince my ministry to go with open solutions. So we'll talk soon.
I just want to add the comment about the code. We have quite a lot of in-house made shitty code. So if you publish, it's much better. That's really true. So I really think that's the truth. So basically, be open. If you publish and do things openly, I think that you can get some fruit out of it, and discuss with similar organizations and similar users what their needs, and if you can do something together. So that's my message for everybody.
Thank you so much. So I think, do we have time for questions? Oh, 6 minutes. Okay, that's a lot. Okay, speed questions. Are there any questions? Anyone? 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 Okay, well, everything was extremely clear. Yeah. Do you have a? Oh, you have a question? Oh,
I'm just wondering about this. I'm just wondering about this sort of either you go all proprietary or you go all open source. Instead of trying to force open source in like that, why not just try to put it in small places everywhere, and it will evolve. I know we've done that in Denmark, in our national mapping agency, and we have most of our data distribution used to be open source, and it worked very, very well, and it's still the most popular way to get data compared to the proprietary big solutions we also have. So, and that's recognized, and that's good. I think that would probably be the way, especially in the public sector, where, well, we like the big package where we can leave all responsibility to the producer, and we can just say, well, it works, and if it doesn't work, well, it's someone else's problem. So
I would like to comment that you cannot outsource the risk, because you are responsible for your products and your production. You cannot outsource your risk or production to some other company. So if you are public administration, so that's my comment on that.
One other comment I wanted to make was very often open source developers put out some code that works well and everyone likes it, and then they build a business on top of it as a value add. So they have a balanced model of having open source base foundation of some of the things that they do, and then they do something very specialized that uses their intimate knowledge of that code to build on top of it, so and offer it as a service of sorts. And that model, speaking back to the financial question, sometimes works quite well.
Yeah, thank you very much for the insights. So I myself, I work in a bigger public institution, and I have to say it's very, very challenging to put open source to work. And I was missing that a little bit in the talk because everybody just praised open source. So there are a couple of things. First thing is, for example, you cannot make anyone responsible for open source. I work in a highly regulated environment that has high security demands. Who can I ask to, I don't know, fix or patch the software regularly? Yeah. If that is not done, I cannot use it, for example. The second thing is, if you use open source, you need a lot of human capital, yeah, because it is more complex and you have to adapt it, and you have oftentimes to kind of work a little bit at least on the code to make it run in your corporate environment. Yeah, and that investment into people is also something that many companies and many public institutions do not want to do that easily. They prefer spending money on some stupid license because that's more controllable, that's more short term. You can just redo it if you don't need it anymore. But if you invest into people, you're creating basically long-term commitments. Yeah. So that's a second one. And I could go on and go on, but I was just wondering whether you, from your positions, also at some point in time faced these really, like, let's say, harder difficulties. Yeah. Besides open source not being there already, and yeah, you don't have the processes. So in public institutions, it's make or buy. It's never contribute. That's another thing. Yeah. So the model doesn't even exist. But did you face also challenges, or are there also factors where you would say, well, it just doesn't make sense in certain circumstances?
I think it's more of a business question.
Just a couple comments about maintenance. You can actually, there's companies that you can buy maintenance for open source, and you can define SLA for that. So it's basically something what you can buy if you don't have your own capability to patches or that kind of thing. So you can actually make an agreement with some company who supports and develop open source, and you can do that. So I think that was the one question.
Like, for example, let's say a company uses Postgres as a dependency or uses Django as a dependency. I mean, then they cannot fix these issues, yeah, because that would have to be fixed upstream, for example. And there are so many sub dependencies that in the end you would have to hire 10 companies to fix the whole ecosystem. I mean, if you take it like, it's always a balance, but if you talk to a security guy who has a really strong security focus, that's sometimes just the reason that they say, well, it doesn't work. Yeah, because you cannot control the whole supply chain of these libraries. Yeah, even if you do support contracts. Yeah, we do that. But anyways.
Yeah, you cannot handle everything. So